April 10, 1942. 6:30 a.m. at the sprawling Kaiser shipyard in Richmond, California. The fog from San Francisco Bay clings to the steel skeletons of half-built ships, the smell of welding sparks and hot metal biting your nose. You can almost hear the groan of cranes lifting hulls as if the iron itself is protesting the impossible. Across the yard, workers in thick gloves and goggles move like ants over a maze of scaffolding, each motion precise yet desperate. They've been told to build what the Navy calls Liberty ships, cargo vessels meant to flood supply lines across the Atlantic. Every day, every hour counts. Supplies of tanks, ammunition, food, the war in Europe depends on them. But here's the catch. These ships normally take 6 months to build, 6 months, and the Navy wants them faster, much faster. Enter Henry J. Kaiser, a man with grease under his nails and a mind that sees the world like a machine itself. Most of his engineers shake their heads at him when he says, "We can do this in weeks." Weeks, not months. The skeptics laugh, shaking their heads as if disbelief could bend reality. But Kaiser sees something they cannot, the way to turn chaos into rhythm, delay into a ticking clock that actually saves lives. At the heart of it is a simple idea, revolutionary in its simplicity: modular construction. Instead of building a ship piece by piece from the keel up, entire sections, the bow, the stern, the engine room, are built simultaneously in separate parts of the yard. And then, in a controlled frenzy of engineering choreography, these massive sections are welded together like puzzle pieces, falling perfectly into place. But today, on this damp morning, the shipyard looks anything but controlled. Sparks fly like fireflies, the clang of metal on metal echoes through the fog, and somewhere near the waterfront, a crane jams, halting progress for what feels like eternity. The workers exchange anxious glances. Delays could cost lives at sea. Can one man really bend the impossible into reality? And yet, as the sun begins to pierce the morning haze, the first hull section of a new Liberty ship glides down the ways, suspended by crane cables like a ghost moving across water. The Navy inspectors arrive, clipboard in hand, skeptical as ever. They are about to witness something no one in shipbuilding has ever seen before. The welding torches flare like miniature suns against the gray morning fog, and you can feel the heat even from 50 feet away. Workers shout over the roar of machinery, their voices sharp with urgency, each command slicing through the clamor. In the distance, a massive bow section hovers on a crane, ready to meet the stern that has been built hundreds of feet away. For decades, shipyards thought such coordination impossible. Today, it is about to happen. Henry J. Kaiser walks along the steel beams, clipboard tucked under one arm, eyes scanning every rivet, every weld. He's not just overseeing, he's orchestrating. "Align it 5 inches to the starboard," he barks, and instantly a dozen hands adjust the massive section with a precision that feels impossible. Sparks leap like lightning as the pieces come together, metal biting metal, molten seams glowing bright orange. There's an almost spiritual rhythm to the chaos. This is modular construction in its rawest, most daring form. Instead of a single team grinding on one hull for months, multiple teams work simultaneously on separate sections. Bow, stern, midship, engines, decks, cargo holds, all built in parallel. And the genius lies not just in speed, but in timing. Kaiser has mapped every movement down to the minute, a mechanical symphony designed to crush the limits of human doubt. Yet not everyone believes it will work. Naval inspectors circle the yard, frowning, muttering about regulations and structural integrity. The first test of the technique comes when the bow and stern must meet perfectly in the water. One misalignment, one weld too weak, and the ship could fail, or worse, sink before it ever leaves the shipyard. You can almost feel the tension in the air, the collective breath of hundreds of workers held in suspense. Then it happens. With a thunderous crash and a hiss of steam, the bow and stern lock together. The Liberty ship, 441 feet long, born not in months but in mere weeks, floats in the bay like a giant phoenix rising from steel. For a moment there is stunned silence. Then the cheers erupt, echoing across Richmond. the sound carrying all the way to the docks where Navy officers watch with disbelief. The impossible has just become reality. But even as one ship slides into the water, another section is being welded together. And the question lingers, hanging over the foggy bay like smoke from a torch. How fast can this miracle really go? Could one man and his vision really flood the Atlantic with ships and change the course of the war? By June 1942, the Kaiser shipyards had found a rhythm that felt almost unreal. Hull after hull slid into the water with a speed that made traditional shipbuilders gape. What once took 6 months now took 6 weeks, and in some unbelievable cases, four days. You can almost see the disbelief on the faces of naval officers as reports come in: a Liberty ship every 4 days. Every 4 days. Inside the yard, it's chaos tamed by ingenuity. Workers move like cogs in a vast living machine. Pipefitters run across scaffolding carrying miles of plumbing. Welders crouch over decks, sparks raining down like fireworks. Crane operators lift massive engines into place as if the laws of gravity themselves had bent to Henry Kaiser's will. And through it all, Kaiser walks the floor, eyes sharp, mind faster than any machine around him. The secret is coordination. Each modular section is prefabricated at separate stations and only brought together at the last moment. Engines, anchor chains, cargo holds, all built in parallel. Inspectors called it madness at first. How could so many moving parts fit perfectly every time? Yet day after day the ships prove them wrong. One ship glides down the ways, then another, then another. Soon the Navy isn't just impressed, they are astonished. Across the Atlantic, Allied commanders take notice. Supply lines, once choked with delays, suddenly swell. Tanks, ammunition, and food that would have trickled for months now arrive in waves, ready for the fighting in North Africa and Europe. Soldiers on the front lines notice the difference, though they never see the man behind it. And in boardrooms in Washington, debates about resource allocation shift dramatically. The war's logistics have been rewritten by steel, sweat, and one engineer's vision. Yet this rapid pace comes at a cost. Accidents are frequent. Workers collapse from exhaustion. Welds fail under stress. Inspectors question whether speed is compromising safety. And then comes the ultimate test. A convoy bound for Europe must depart with dozens of these ships. If even one fails at sea, the illusion of speed could turn into disaster. Can this daring gamble truly survive the ocean? August 1942. The first convoy of Kaiser-built Liberty ships slips into the churning Atlantic, gray waves crashing against steel hulls that only days ago were still lying in Richmond. You can almost feel the ocean spray and hear the whistle of the wind through the rigging. For the crew, this is more than a voyage. It's a leap of faith. These ships, born of speed and innovation, must survive the most unforgiving highway in wartime, the U-boat-infested waters of the North Atlantic. Captain James D. Williams grips the wheel of the SS Patrick Henry, the first of its kind launched in record time. Every creak of the hull, every thrum of the engine sends shivers down his spine. "Is she sturdy enough?" he mutters under his breath. Below decks, cargo holds brim with tanks, ammunition, and medical supplies, the lifeblood of armies fighting in Europe and Africa. The fate of thousands may rest on this single voyage. And then the first test arrives. A sonar ping echoes from the depths. A U-boat is nearby. The crew scrambles, guns manned, tension sharp enough to cut with a knife. But the ship holds. Welded seams, modular sections, prefabricated engines all endure the pounding of the waves. Weeks of skepticism from naval engineers are finally met with undeniable proof. Speed did not compromise strength. The Liberty ship is more than a miracle of production. It is a weapon in itself, delivering men and materials that will tip battles across the world. Meanwhile, back at the shipyard, the next hulls are already being prepped. Workers barely pause to celebrate. 4 days, that's the new standard, and each launch fuels the Navy's incredulity. Admiral Ernest King himself writes notes of astonishment. The pace is unprecedented, the results undeniable. Kaiser smiles quietly, knowing this is only the beginning. But even he cannot fully predict the scale of the impact. Convoys arriving faster, armies equipped sooner, the tide of war subtly shifting because one man reimagined how steel could be tamed. Yet as the convoy disappears into the fog of the Atlantic, a chilling thought ripples through Washington. If Germany discovers how fast these ships are being produced, how might they respond? The very success of Kaiser's innovation could invite a new, deadly test. By late 1943, the Kaiser shipyards had become a legend whispered in naval briefings and Allied command rooms. Ships were no longer a trickle, they were a flood. You can almost see the sheer weight of steel rolling off the ways, hull after hull, as if the bay itself were giving birth to an army of cargo carriers. Every 4 days, another Liberty ship was born, some carrying tanks, some ammunition, others medical supplies, all racing across the Atlantic to sustain the fight against Hitler's forces. Across the European front, Allied generals noticed the difference immediately. Supplies that used to arrive piecemeal now come in steady, reliable waves. Patton's tanks rumble through North Africa, fully fueled and armed. Eisenhower's plans in Normandy no longer hinge on precarious logistics. The once impossible army of material now exists, alive and moving. Soldiers talk in hushed tones about the ships arriving like clockwork, a ghostly fleet defying the oceans themselves. Even the enemy takes notice. German U-boats, expecting the usual slow trickle of convoys, are stunned when dozens of Liberty ships appear, seemingly overnight. Their intelligence is thrown into chaos. Every ship that reaches Europe intact strengthens the Allied advance, eroding the Axis grip with every port arrival. The war is not won in a single battle, but in the relentless, unstoppable rhythm of supply. One engineer's vision has made the impossible tangible, bending time and effort into something that feels like magic. Back in Richmond, Kaiser walks the shipyard at dawn, watching sparks fly over steel decks, hearing the hum of welding machines and the shouting of workers. He doesn't boast. He doesn't celebrate. He knows that each ship, each day shaved off the building schedule, is measured in lives saved and victories enabled. The stakes are higher than ever. And yet the question hangs in the fog. Could they go faster? Could they keep this pace under the weight of war? The answer would not come from Henry Kaiser alone, but from the men and women who risked life and limb, from the welders and crane operators, from the crews who took these floating miracles into the Atlantic's deadly embrace. Every day was a gamble, every ship a message. Innovation could fight the war as much as soldiers could, and the world was about to see just how far this gamble would carry them. The miracle of the Liberty ships wasn't just in steel or engineering, it was in people. Thousands of men and women moved through the Richmond shipyards like a living machine, their sweat and determination driving the impossible pace. You can almost feel the exhaustion in the air, muscles burning, lungs heavy with smoke and metal dust, yet no one stops. Every task, every weld, every bolt counts toward a single goal: keep the ships coming. Women, previously confined to clerical roles, now run cranes, steer trolleys loaded with engines, and assemble massive hull sections. Men who once worked in machine shops or farms now learn welding, riveting, and assembly line logistics. Kaiser treats them not as laborers but as collaborators in a revolution. Each of you is a cog, he says, but together we can turn the tide of war. And they do. The speed and precision achieved here would have been unthinkable just a year earlier. Yet human endurance has limits. Accidents happen: a misfired torch, a slipped crane, a weld that gives way under pressure. Nurses and medics are constantly on alert, patching burns and broken bones, keeping the engine of the shipyard alive. The risk is immense, but so is the reward. Every Liberty ship launched is a lifeline for soldiers overseas, a rolling fortress of steel carrying hope across the Atlantic. And then comes a day that tests every bit of resolve. A hull section collapses during assembly, crashing into the ways with a deafening roar. Workers freeze, hearts pound. Inspectors rush over, whispering that months of work might be lost. Kaiser steps forward, assessing the damage with calm fury. "We rebuild. Faster," he says. And just like that, the yard erupts into action again, sparks flying, cranes swinging, and human determination pushing metal past its limits. The impossible pace continues, fueled by grit, courage, and a relentless refusal to fail. But even with this human engine running at full throttle, there's an unspoken fear. Can speed alone withstand the dangers of war at sea? The ships are fast, but the Atlantic is unforgiving, and German U-boats are lurking in the shadows. The next convoy will be the ultimate test. October 1943. The SS John W. Brown cuts through the gray Atlantic, steel hull groaning under the waves, cargo holds packed to the brim with tanks, ammunition, and rations. The crew grips the rails as the wind bites through their coats, and the smell of salt water mixes with engine smoke. This is the culmination of months of relentless effort at Richmond. Every weld, every bolt, every spark of sweat now faces the unforgiving sea. From a lookout's perch, a dark shape rises on the horizon. U-boat. German wolf packs had been terrorizing convoys for months, sinking merchant vessels faster than shipyards could replace them. But the Liberty ships are different. They are built fast, yes, but they are strong, modular, and resilient. Guns manned by naval armed guards swivel into position and the crew braces. Shells whistle past, waves crash, and for a tense hour, the convoy dances with death. And yet the ships hold. Engines roar, hulls flex, and cargo arrives intact. Word reaches Washington within days. Not a single ship lost. Admiral King's disbelief turns into stunned admiration. The speed and scale of production is not just a logistical marvel, it is a strategic weapon. The Allies can now sustain multiple fronts simultaneously, feeding armies that once struggled with ration shortages. One man's vision, J Kaiser's radical modular assembly, has altered the war itself. But as the convoy reaches port safely, whispers spread among officers. Could this be scaled even further? Could Kaiser maintain the pace as the war intensifies? And the most haunting thought for everyone watching this success unfold: if the Axis realizes the secret behind these floating miracles, will they attempt to strike back? And how many ships would have to be lost before the tide of production could overwhelm them again? The stakes are higher than ever. Every launch, every convoy, every spark on the shipyard floor is now a heartbeat in the war. And while the Liberty ships continue to pour from Richmond, the next test is already forming on the horizon, one that will define the limits of innovation under fire. By 1944, Richmond had become a factory of miracles. The Liberty ships were no longer novelties or experiments. They were the backbone of the Allied war effort. You can almost hear the hum of cranes and welding torches as the shipyard stretches as far as the eye can see, a city of steel and motion, where time itself seems to bend to human will. Ships now roll out every 4 days, each one a floating testament to what determination and ingenuity can achieve. J Kaiser walks through the yard, not as a boss, but as a conductor of a symphony. His eyes scan welds, engines, and hulls, but he also notices the workers, the women, the men, the teenagers, moving with a rhythm only born from months of relentless practice. He knows the war is being won not just by battles, but by the relentless supply of material that allows those battles to be fought. And every ship that slides into the water carries with it hope, life, and the possibility of victory. Across the globe, soldiers in North Africa, Italy, and Normandy feel the difference. Rations are steady, weapons arrive on schedule, reinforcements don't trickle in, they surge. And for the first time, Allied generals can plan offensives not around scarcity but around opportunity. The secret of the Liberty ship, speed, modular construction, human ingenuity, has become a weapon as potent as tanks or artillery. Yet amidst this triumph, there's an echo of tension. Could the pace be maintained? Could the workforce endure until the war's end? And what of the enemy? Would they find a way to strike at the very heart of this production miracle? The answers are uncertain, but one thing is clear. The Liberty ships are no longer just ships. They are symbols of innovation, of perseverance, of a world in which one man's vision can tilt the scales of history. And as another hull slides into the water under the rising sun, sparks flying like fireworks, it's impossible not to marvel. From disbelief to awe, from months to days, from dream to unstoppable reality, Henry Kaiser has done what no one thought possible. The tide of war, it seems, has a new master.